this off with an activity. I want you to imagine that in the time that you've been sitting in this room, 3 American jumbo jets, completely full with passengers and crew, had crashed and everyone had died. Now I want you to imagine what the situation would be like when you left this room, you turned on your cell phones. The media would be in an absolute uproar, trying to cover every single possible angle that the story could have taken, from mechanical malfunction to terrorism to alien involvement. The FAA would have launched a full-fledged investigation into the incident, flights would be grounded, politicians would be making statements, and above all, we would all be heartbroken and outraged at the number of lives that had been needlessly lost. Now, what I want you to realize is that in the same amount of time, just as many people have silently and needlessly lost their lives due to the lack of access to safe drinking water. Now, don't feel bad if you didn't know this. The majority of people today don't realize that the lack of access to safe drinking water is the largest global socioeconomic crisis of our time. I myself didn't realize this until I traveled to Peru several years ago. I traveled to a remote village called Chimbodi, and while there, as anyone that goes to a developing country does, I drank bottled water. I learned before I left that if I drank the water there, it would make me very ill. Now, being the unrelenting and slightly annoyingly curious 13-year-old that I was, I asked a lot of questions. My biggest question was this: why was the water so terrible for a fragile gringo such as myself to drink, but perfectly fine for the local Peruvians to drink? And it's in this question that I discovered the main reason why this global epidemic does not garner more attention. The majority of people believe that the local Peruvians can drink the water because their bodies are used to it. Conversely, we aren't used to it. We've been spoiled off of our purified and filtered water that comes out of a bottle or from the chemical treatment plants a few miles from our homes. However, this is a serious and grave misconception. It is a biological impossibility for anyone to develop immunities to the countless viruses and bacteria that are present in the contaminated water. I want to give you some statistics to hopefully put this into perspective. According to UNICEF, 1 child dies every 60 seconds from a preventable illness caused by drinking unclean water. And more people die each year from diseases related to unsafe drinking water than from all armed conflict combined. According to the World Health Organization, we could save 1.8 million children's lives each year if we just gave them clean water to drink. And over half of the hospital beds in the developing world are occupied by people suffering from preventable illnesses caused by drinking unsafe water. Simply stated, 1 in every 9 of us does not have access to something as basic as safe water to drink. Now, what I want you to realize is that this is a massive problem, and we need to do something about it. Totally blanked. Okay, so it's a massive problem. We need to do something about it. And the thing is that if the bad water, it doesn't kill you or send you to the hospital, which obviously those are very, very bad options, it's still going to cause problems because this isn't just a health issue, it's a social and economic issue as well. Now, Chimbodi is the perfect example. Chimbodi, the town that I traveled to on my first trip to Peru, is an impoverished town and it's dying out. However, it didn't used to be like this. About 40 years ago, it actually was a vibrant community that thrived off of its fishing industry. Now, in the 70s, a massive storm came through and it demolished the fish population. They still haven't returned. So the fishing industry collapsed and the town died. Now, what I want you to realize, and please understand this, the people of Chimbodi are extraordinarily resilient. They're strong, intelligent, and they desperately want to change their situation. However, the cards are stacked against them. Can you imagine going to work while suffering from the debilitating pain of chronic abdominal cramps? Can you imagine going the extra mile or putting in extra time while you're suffering from a splitting headache because you are so dehydrated from your constant diarrhea? It is nearly impossible to succeed while constantly ill. And simply stated, the people of Chimodi do not know what it feels like to be healthy. So, if you don't know what it feels like to be healthy, how are you going to continue on with your day? How are you going to support your children? And the thing is that it's not even just affecting the adults, it is affecting the children. Kids are missing out on their education. They're missing out on school days because they are sick and they have to stay home. And teenagers and young adults are missing school and even dropping out so they can work jobs to help their families afford bottled water. And in this way, they're missing out on the education that they so desperately require in order to break the cycle of poverty for themselves and future generations. And as global population continues to rise and climate change continues to worsen, this is only going to continue to become a larger and larger problem. Simply stated, the situation is bleak. In fact, many prominent economists are now predicting that water will surpass oil and become a more valuable commodity by the end of this century. If we're going to act and reverse this trend, we have to act now. So here's the really great news. See, this massive global epidemic is also one of today's most easily fixable problems. When I returned home from Peru, I did some research and I discovered all of this, and I decided that something had to be done. I co-founded my own international nonprofit foundation, and in just 5 years, we've been able to accomplish some absolutely incredible things. We provided sustainable clean water solutions to over 3,000 individuals, and we're currently active in 6 different countries on 2 separate continents. We've been able to accomplish all of this because we focus on a very, very simplistic but effective 3-step model. And those 3 steps are investigation, installation, and education. First, we investigate. We form deep and solid relationships with prominent local leaders in order to ensure that their community actually wants a water purification system. After this, we run simple and easy to use tests to ensure that the water at these locations is in fact unsafe. After that, we move to the second step, installation. We travel to these locations and install the water purifier that best suits the needs for the site. For large community centers, we use large electrolysis systems. With just a handful of table salt, you can purify hundreds of gallons of water within just a few hours. For smaller family homes, we use micron filtration buckets. They're cheap, easy to use, and they last for years without needing replacement. And new research is constantly evolving in this field, so we do our best to stay on top of it. And finally, we educate the locals on how to effectively utilize the system, why it's important, and other basic sanitation topics, such as hand washing. Now, amidst all this work and installing somewhat complex systems in remote places, some interesting adventures have definitely taken place. On one occasion, we were working on a electrolysis installation at a remote school at the base of the Andes Mountains. Now, they had a tank for us there, which is required for the system to put the clean water into. However, the inside of the tank was very, very dirty. And so we're in the middle of a desert, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to clean this. Now, it just so happened that as we're puzzling through this, a man with a donkey-drawn cart conveniently rolled by. We ended up approaching him and asking him, "Sir, could we please use your donkey-drawn cart so that we can take this about a mile down the road to where we knew there was a water basin that we could use to clean out the tank?" Fortunately, he agreed, and within 10 minutes, we were all loaded onto this very, very, very questionably structurally stable cart and traveling down the road. On another occasion, I was in this rickety old van, and we had just finished an installation of micron filtration buckets up at this remote Quechuan village in the Andes Mountains. Now, everything had gone fine, and we were merrily driving along, when all of a sudden the van violently shook, and my friend sitting next to me screamed and just about jumped in my lap. Now, I look over, and this donkey's face is completely plastered to the side of our van. See, apparently the donkey had been tethered to a rope, and it had been stretched across the road. So when our van drove past it, it kind of violently drug the donkey's face into the side of the van. Now, don't worry, the donkey was fine. Our driver assured us of this. Apparently, these things happen all the time. One other of my favorite occasions, we were looking for this prominent local named Margarita. Now, we knew which road Margarita lived on, but we weren't exactly sure which house was his. So we were driving along, and the first local that we find, we approach him and we ask, hey, do you know where Margarita's house is? We really need to find it. And he said, sure, you're just gonna continue down this road for a little ways and you will promptly arrive at his house. So we continued driving along in one direction, and we didn't find it, and we were kind of thinking that maybe we were lost. So we stopped and we asked another person on the side of the road, where's Margarita's house? They kindly informed us that we just needed to turn back around and head in the direction we'd come from, and we would promptly find Margarita's house. Now, we were a little bit questionable of this advice, so the next person we saw, we asked them as well, and they told us that we just needed to turn around and head back in the direction we'd just come from. So I think we turned around about 15 times and traveled up and down about a mile-long stretch of road for a good hour before we finally found Margarita's house, and when we did, there were several locals that cheered for us. So amidst all of this fun and the adventures and the amazing experience I've had, the absolute best part of it has been able to see how someone my age can actually make a difference. I'm only 19, and I was 13 when I came up with the idea for the foundation. There are so many people out there so ready to tell someone like me that I'm too young, too inexperienced. There are so many people that tell me to wait because if I try anything right now, I will surely fail. However, I've experienced the exact opposite. I've held conferences where adults 3 times my age came to hear what I had to say. They learned from me and they appreciated it. I've spoken at churches, and afterwards the outpouring of donations is absolutely incredible. After a 20-minute presentation, these adults believe in what I'm doing and they encourage me. There's this negative stigma that I think is really difficult to get around. There's a lot of people that believe that us young people are self-absorbed, selfie-snapping narcissists. But I really would like to implore you to not believe in that or fit into that assumption. Because when given the chance, we can inspire others to action. And it's so easy to get involved. If you really want to implement your own project, it's so easy to find an organization that will train you for free. And if you don't want to implement your own project, if going on a trip isn't for you, donate to an organization that is making a difference. But above all, share this message with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your coworkers, your church, anyone and everyone. The more people that know about this, the bigger a difference and an impact we can make. If we all just made this simple decision to care, we could shine a light on this global epidemic that is affecting so many people's lives. We could help make a difference for the 7.8 billion people on the planet that don't have access to clean drinking water. We could stop the planes from crashing, and we could save those lives. All we have to do is choose to act. Thank you.